Welcome to IIPA. Today we have gathered here for national conference and case study competition where we have more than 50 people participating and presenting their papers on various topics. They have come to IIPA from different parts of the country and will be presenting their papers today. We have eminent speakers from IIM Lucknow, Gurugram University and Sparsh Business School who will be the eminent speaker, and they will be encouraging these participants to write and will be judging the participants, and they will be rewarded at the end of the case study competition. This is the first ever national conference and case study competition that IIPA is conducting with an aim to encourage and inspire people to write more case studies.
Case studies have not taken so much prominence in Indian education system is primarily because there is lack of confidence between the people who will provide the data for the case studies and people who will write this. See, if you take an example of what happened at Taj Hotel during the bomb blast, we all wanted to understand what happened, but the whole issue of what happened inside Taj Hotel that day was written by a Harvard professor who came down from Harvard and wrote that case study. Point is, we have umpteen times we have gone to corporates, we have told them that this is what we want to write, why not let's partner it. There is a lack of confidence between these two players, and the corporates develop a cold feet in sharing information, data with Indian case writers. So unless and until, even in government also, let's say public policy, and there are umpteen number of issues on which we can write with the government, with the corporates, but lack of trust between these two parties is creating a problem. I have analyzed this at the root level because we have done the root cause also. The root cause is lack of industry-academia linkages.
Good point, yes.
Let me make it more specific. For example, at IIMs, you can teach only if you are a PhD. This is not true in Harvard. So somebody who is working with, let's say, Bank of America can come and take a course in Harvard Business School. So when a Bank of America senior executive is doing a course in Harvard Business School, look at the amount of trust and transparency I have. He's not a PhD, he's a practitioner. He has 20 years of experience banking and he comes and teaches a course. Back home here, we will always insist on that you do a PhD, then only you can teach in an IIT or an IIM. This kind of barriers, we understand there is a need for PhD, but this kind of regulatory barriers which have been created bring down the trust between these two parties.
It poses as a challenge.
Correct. And then if you don't allow me to talk to your students, if you don't allow me to come and teach a course in your university, then why will I have trust in you to share data with you and together we write a case study? So that is where the problem is.
Is there any area in governance and public administration, do you think, where we could encourage more case writing?
Yeah, again, I mean, for example, impact on women in terms of microfinance lending, that's one area where I've looked at. I worked on my, the incubator also, we promoted a lot of Fintech companies. How is this technology initiative on financial inclusion particularly helping the women entrepreneurs at the grassroots level, very small micro entrepreneurs? How is that happening? Are we writing enough case studies there? No. So we talk about the Mishos of the world. Misho is actually bringing the micro entrepreneurs on an aggregate platform, because I've seen my wife and many others using Misho as a platform to buy clothes. But are we also talking about the suppliers to Mishos? Which could be a woman entrepreneur sitting somewhere in 80 kilometers outside Lucknow in a small town in Raebareli, making those dresses, stitching those dresses and then sending it to Misho to be sold. Those kind of ground level case studies are not being written. Where the impact is actually getting visible, that should be captured. That is not happening. So we can go on. I mean, impact of technology in financial inclusion, impact of a policy on the, let's say, small entrepreneurs. there are very few case studies which are written on very small entrepreneurs, let's say in NCR only, very small micro entrepreneurs who have annual revenue of less than 2 crores. Are we writing case studies on them? Again, no. We write case studies on the Reliance and the Tatas of India.
On the corporates.
On the corporates. So more focus is required on smaller businesses, more focus is required on the ground level impact to be studied, and then we can really bring those stories to the class, because the students are ready to appreciate, but it has to be documented very nicely. You can't just take one piece of paper and say this is a story of a woman entrepreneur. You have to document it nicely, you have to put numbers into that so that the impact is more strong. It has to have with a lot of data point also.
So the academicians should also have a grip on how to write well.
Right, right.
Even that is important.
That is very important. That is
Because
always
not
there.
everybody, not every student know how to write better case studies and present it in a better manner.
True. But what I'm saying is the content has to be very strong. Why we still do some US business school cases is because the content is very, very rich. So we have enough data to analyze that case from all aspects.
Sir, why academicians should be encouraged to write more case studies? What do you think about it?
No, as Mr. Tripathi suggested today during the inaugural speech, that we need to take Indian stories to the global platform. While we have been borrowing Western stories in Indian classrooms, in our management education or education in public administration, public policy and public health and so on and so forth, here is the time where Indian stories to be taken. India being a vast country, and you get scenarios which are very wide, and stories that are profound in terms of impact created for a kind of a country with the population density and the width of challenges that we face, which Western countries may not be facing. These are the stories, success stories, that we need to bring into the classroom. For example, you have this whole episode of tackling COVID crisis and the vaccine administration. Now this can be a huge case study on logistics management, how the vaccines were delivered to every nook and corner of the country on time, and record was kept. So there is a huge case study in logistics management, huge case study in supply chain, huge case study in operations management in this one particular episode. So here is the time we bring in more Indian stories into the classroom and take it to the world, and that's where the role of academicians working with public administration guys come to the fore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We would like to know what is the status of case study writing in India compared to other countries. Where do you think India stands?
Thank you for your question. I will refer to data to answer your question. Harvard Business School, for example, produces or writes about 500 plus cases on an average every year. And there's an institution in Spain, a business school, IESC, they write about 100 plus cases every year. But we have so-called IIMs, and which claims to be the most important institutions using case teaching method. There the average production is about 70 cases a year. Okay. Right, so now this number speaks more than what anything else. So I think I've answered your question.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you think we can encourage academicians and even non-academicians to focus more on case study writing?
To do that, case study writing would become important and become popular only if, as teachers believe that case teaching method is a very, very important method of teaching, which is actually the part of active learning. Right? If we as a professors, we as a teachers, we start believing in that and understand the importance of case teaching method, which leads to critical thinking, which leads to collaboration, which leads to reflective thinking. So all are these the benefits of case teaching method. So we as teachers, the onus is on us, on professors. If we believe that case teaching method will bring in all this, only then the case teaching method will become popular. And yeah.
I'd like to know, do you think that case study helps in, like contributes in policy formulation? If yes, how does it does?
Policy?
Formulation and decision making in governance.
When it comes to policy formulation, answer would be yes, but it's not used so extensively in India. But the second part of your question was for the
In decision making.
decision making, certainly yes. So how does it? How is it used in this policy making? For example, we have special economic zones in India. How do we decide that this particular zone would be considered as special economic zone? Basis on the performance, basis on the output, what kind of products or services are coming from that zone or they are lacking in that zone, right? So the government decides that this particular sector or zone should be developed as SEZ. This is one of the examples. So the policies are made, for that particular sector. This is one. For decision making, certainly, there cannot be nothing better than decision making. The adoption would vary. There are many more factors which actually play a role when it comes to taking a decision. It's not only the numbers, it's not only, there are many things, like many agendas which are off the records, different than what it seems to be. So, but certainly it helps in decision making. That is a very proven fact. There is research which actually suggests that this is the best way of decision making.
Is there any area in governance and public administration where more case studies could be done, which is unexplored maybe, and where case studies could be, done, encouraged?
Area of governance, I would say personally, the cases, there are limited cases when it comes to services, be it armed force services. So we do not have many cases. The cases written are from the corporate sector, So entirely the whole public sector units, entirely the services, there's hardly any case we come across.
So we should do more.
That is the area to be explored further. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.